All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you to everybody for joining me on the webinar this morning. My name is Nicholas Mate, and I'm the Customer Success Manager for Genetec Clearance. So today we're going to be doing an overview of our clearance application. It's our digital evidence management platform here at Genetec. We're going to be taking a quick look at some of the challenges that we're looking at today in the market, some of the existing hurdles in dealing with digital evidence and how we look to approach that with clearance. And then we're going to jump into a product demonstration where we'll go through all of the features and functionality inside of the application. I'm also going to be answering questions at the end of the webinar. So write those down, hold on to them, and I'll be able to go through as many of them as we can at the end of the hour. So with that said, we'll get started here. So taking a look at some of the trends in the industry currently, video continues to be responsible for disrupting traditional workflows in situations where we're not only looking at video that has been produced by a VMS, but also other information that is highly complementary to an incident, which is also likely being managed in other systems altogether. These other systems could be incident management tools, case management or LP management tools, or even CAD system tools. These typically hold the information about event logs or suspects, but the video will often be held in other systems. Here, only certain individuals will have access to each of the applications, which can create blind spots when all of the information isn't available. When there becomes a requirement to share that information with other internal parties, like a risk team or a legal department, or with other jurisdictions like local law enforcement, district attorneys, crown attorneys, there's going to be a process involving putting the information on a disk to send it off to them. What we're seeing as the most common method today is to burn DVDs or physically store them, or by using physical network drives with a shared repository folder for each year. These scenarios and solutions create difficulties when it comes to compliance, trying to protect the video, making sure it doesn't get leaked or become available to unauthorized individuals. So in looking at the solution as a whole, while wanting to make it easier to share information, we also want to make sure that it's only going to the appropriate people. Here we consider the level of access certain individuals will have, who will be able to review or edit files, and how long the information will be stored. With clearance, we can set this up on a role-based retention model. Looking at how video requests are made today, what we've seen is that in the absence of having an application that handles these workflows for digital evidence, organizations rely on paper forms for the intake of different requests. This could be from internal collaborators like different departments or teams, or forms you're sending to law enforcement, attorneys, or sometimes even private citizens who are requesting information. You ask them to fill out a form, and then the evidence is burned to a disk or put on a USB key for physical delivery and pickup. Again, we're looking at a very manual process where we don't have a lot of governance over the data, and this is a challenge that we also look to solve in clearance. So with clearance, we're really looking to strike a balance between 2 points. One is efficiency, and the other is compliance. We want to make the process more seamless and easy, where you'll be able to share information electronically while ensuring it is encrypted and that the access rights are appropriate. At the same time, we want to make sure that you have better governance of your data. Here, you ensure the privacy of the data is being shared, the privacy of the data that is being shared, and that simply put, only the right people can see it. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into a product demonstration here. So I'll open this up to our homepage for Genetec Clearance. So the platform is a fully agnostic, 100% cloud-hosted web application. We're able to get on here with any device. It could be a workstation or a mobile device. And like I mentioned, we've designed this platform to be source agnostic. So we're not really concerned about the type of video that's coming in. We have a support for a wide range of codecs, and we'll be able to work with a lot of video and sources of information. We're not really concerned about the VMS in this situation. Now, that being said, like all other Genetec products, we have some excellent existing integrations with Security Center. So where I'm actually going to start out is in Security Desk. And we're going to take a look at one of the plugins that we have for Genetec Clearance that allows us to directly export video from Security Desk into a tied clearance account. So I'll get some video loaded up in a monitoring task here. And with the plugin installed, our operator will have the ability to come in and right-click on the video, and they'll now have a new option to send video to Genetec Clearance. So this will allow us to decide whether we want to send video to an existing case or to create a new one. Here I'm going to generate a new case for the example. So we'll call this May 7th video export, and we're going to start to build our case. We're going to select a department. Think of this as a predefined access template. This is a custom field that will be set up and configured in the clearance account, and this will allow us to quickly and easily apply access for a group of users on cases. For the category, another custom field, this will not only allow us to categorize incidents based on the type that we deal with in our organization or agency, but this will also allow us to manage the retention period for all of the files contained in our cases. I'm going to leave this on arson for now. We can start to add additional information about our case. We can define an incident number or a record number if we have one. Really any unique identifier that you'll use or that you're already leveraging in your system. And we can put in a description for the video or the file. Down in the file information section, we can also add additional information, and this is where we can define the start and end time for the clip that we're going to be exporting into the clearance account. So we can move 24 hours of video at a time. I'm just going to leave this as a 2-minute clip for a quick export. So I'll click OK, and you'll see that we get a notification that our case has been successfully created in clearance. Up in the system tray in Security Desk, we're going to see that our export is in progress. So I'll jump out of Security Desk and we'll come back to our clearance homepage. I'll refresh this. And looking at the homepage, we can see that we have access to all of our tabs on the left-hand side. We're going to go through these today. We've got some learning information and updates, but what I really want to draw your attention to is our My Activities dashboard. Here, a user is able to see all of the cases that they currently have access to in the system. And this is going to sort by last update. So for any new cases that you're invited to, they will appear at the top. Here we can see our May 7th video export that was created about 29 seconds ago. We're going to click on this and open it up and start taking a look at our case. So right away, you can see that all of the information that we entered in Security Desk has carried over into this case. So our operator doesn't need to do double data entry. We'll be able to keep everything pumped in from there. We can change this or add additional descriptive information. We can also add custom tags. So we're looking at some video from a parking lot here. I'm going to add a custom parking tag. Search and clearance is done based off of keyword or field. So the more information that we fill out in a case, the easier it will be to find after the fact. We can also add location information to cases and files. We have an integration with Google Maps. So if I start to type in the name of an address or a business, it will populate my list and I can save this here. I can also open up a Google Map and I can drag and drop a pin wherever I need to go. So I'll save this here. And you can see that our file that we've exported from Security Desk is now available in the clearance case. I'm going to open up the view details here, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. So we have a two-step process when it comes to uploading files in Genetec Clearance. First, we'll get the file into the account itself up in the cloud. Again, we're using the Microsoft Azure Data Center platform to host the application and all of the data. Once the video is there, we're going to do a conversion and create an MP4 copy of the video. So to step back for a moment, one of the challenges that we see today in handling digital evidence is the fact that a lot of the video that's being handled and that's associated with investigations is coming from proprietary video recording systems, and they have proprietary video formats. So if we use Genetec as an example, when we do an export from Security Desk, we'll have the G64 or G64X formats, and you'll need either access to Security Desk or the Genetec video player to be able to review the video. With the trends that we're seeing in IT departments, not every user in an organization or an agency has the ability to download new software without going through IT. So this can slow down the course of an investigation. And then when we start to look at institutions that either have multiple sources of video with different proprietary formats, or if we're looking at something like a police department or a city scenario where you can be receiving video from hundreds, if not thousands of different stakeholders, all with their different recording systems, it can be a real challenge to access all of the evidence. So here, with the MP4 copy that we create, we're able to play that back directly in the Clearance web browser and mitigate this entire scenario. So I've got some G64X or G64 video here, and I'm able to play this back directly in the browser. So when I share this with somebody, they're able to review the evidence immediately. We're able to pull in the timestamp information from Genetec video. You can see that we've got that here on the bar. For non-Genetec video, you can manually apply the timestamp information down in the general section below. We're able to jump into full screen playback for review. We can speed up or slow down the playback. And we also have the ability to do digital zoom on the video. So if we want to be able to take a closer look at something, or if we're dealing with maybe some high resolution video from a city camera or something that's up on a pole, we'll be able to see this very easily. One of the other things that we've got here is the digital watermark that's displayed. So this is unique to video inside of the application. When we download video, it will not export with the watermark. And the use case here is to act as a deterrent for users in the system with view-only rights, using their cell phone to record video off their computer monitor. So here with the watermark displayed, the user's name who's reviewing the file will be displayed along with the company crest and some of the case information. So this will deter leaking, and we're able to provide permissions to allow users to toggle this off depending on their level of trust. Now, I've spoken a lot about the MP4 copy and how we can leverage this. I want to point out that we always have the ability to download the original file. So just in terms of being able to have good governance of the data and manage the chain of evidence, we're always able to pull out that original copy with the original digital signature. So if we do have to go to court with evidence, we're able to prove that it has not been changed or tampered with in any capacity. So I'll jump back to our case view here. And I want to talk about some of the other methods that we have to bring video or files into Genetec Clearance. So from the web browser itself, we can click on the Add Files from Computer option in the Files section, and this will open a File Explorer window that we can use to then upload files. We can also open a Documents folder, and we can just drag and drop information into the case in Clearance. I had mentioned before that the system is designed to be totally source agnostic. So for organizations that are using another VMS that's not Genetec, we also have another mechanism that they can use to queue up file uploads. So we have a desktop application called the Genetec Clearance Uploader. And this can be installed on the workstation, and it will act in a similar way to what you saw with the plugin in Security Desk. I can click Select Files and browse my workstation for information that I want to upload to the Clearance case or the Clearance account. I can click Open, and you'll see that I have pretty much the same tool as before. I can select an existing case or create a new one, and then I can add the information that I want to queue up the file. So this is something that can be leveraged even if you're not using Genetec today. So I'm going to save here. And we've got a couple of different files that we've added to this case. I've talked a lot about video so far. One of the things that I want to point out is that we're able to deal with any file, really. We can bring any file that we want into a Clearance case. Now, if I open a PDF as an example, I'm able to preview this document in Clearance. We'll give this a second here to generate that preview. I can review the information. But naturally, there will be some limitations. As an example, we can't open Office documents in the application itself, we would have to download this if we wanted to review it. The important point here, however, is that you're able to upload any file type that you want to Clearance. And even if you can't review it, you're still able to consolidate it in the case and have that single repository for all of your information. This will cut down on the siloing when all of the stakeholders can go to a single environment for the data associated with a case or an investigation. We can even create custom folders. So if I wanted to make a documents folder, I can create this on our case. And then I can take specific files and move them into that documents folder. So cases can have up to 5,000 items at one time, and there's no hard storage limit on a case. We're really only looking at the total storage allotted for the subscription. So if your cases or investigations are going on for a lengthy period of time and you have a lot of information that's coming into them, rest assured that you'll be able to keep everything organized and you'll be able to contain everything in the single case. We're going to take a look now at the permissions section here and talk a little bit about how we can share information and manage user access and clearance. So I had mentioned previously that our department acts as a predefined access template. Right now we have this set to the administrator group. I'm going to switch this over to security. And when I save, you're going to see that our permissions section is going to update here. We've got several new users that have now been added to this case, all with predefined permissions that we've set up in our configurations tab. Looking at the permission levels in Clearance, we have 4 tiers: view only, view and download, edit, and manage. The first 2 I think are pretty self-explanatory. For edit, this will give the user the ability to upload files or remove them from a case, as well as to modify the general information section. And the manage permission will give the user the ability to manage the permissions, create file requests. They'll be able to close or delete cases and share the case content with other individuals, as well as accessing the audit trails. So this is really a power user permission level. And depending on the requirements of the different users working on the investigation, we can provide them with the appropriate permission level. So when we want to share information, what we'll do is we'll come to the permission section and we'll click on the blue plus. If we're dealing with sharing internally for somebody that's already a member of our Clearance account, we can click the Add Users button, and then we can search for anybody in our system. We can use the search box up at the top. So if I wanted to search for Eric Surasato, our product manager, I can find him and add him to this case. And if we want to share information with an external party, maybe in this case, we're looking to share video with a district attorney, we can come in here and invite that user as a guest. So we'll be asked to provide an email account for this user. And when we click invite, it's going to add them to the case. We can define a retention period for their access if necessary. And then we can also define their permission level. Once we're satisfied, we can click save, and this will generate an activation email for the user. So I'm actually going to switch over to an incognito browser in Google Chrome. I'm going to log in with that guest account and show you what this looks like from a guest's perspective. So the first thing that you'll notice when we log in as a guest user is that we have to accept a custom terms and conditions. This is defined by the account holder. And if I don't accept this or click cancel, I'll be logged out of the account immediately, and I can't go beyond the window until I've accepted. You can see as a guest that my access to the tabs on the left-hand side is diminished. Really, I'll only have access to cases that I've been added to through my activities dashboard. So we'll click on this case that we created a couple of minutes ago and open this up as a guest user. Here you can see with the view and download permissions that I'm able to review the basic information in the case, but I can't click on any of the fields and make modifications. For the files, I'm able to click on a video. I can start to play this back in the browser, and I even have the download options available. But beyond that, I can't add additional users, and I can't change any of the information in the system. So this is how we can effectively invite a guest and share information. They're able to download it or view it in the browser, and we're not really looking at having to burn videos to a disk or put information on a USB drive. And we also keep very good control over the data. So I'll jump back to our case with the admin view here. And we've talked about how we can invite somebody to a case and share information with Clearance. Now we're going to talk about the file request. This is a feature that allows us to bring information into a case from an external source. So a couple of scenarios we could look at here. Maybe we're a police department and we're looking to receive video from a local business that's got a recording system. Typically, we would see a patrol officer go down to the customer site, and they would have to collect the evidence from them manually. Here, we'll be able to bring that into the system through a shareable link. Another scenario we could look at is if we're dealing with a commercial organization, a multi-site business, and we've got a couple of distributed camera systems across maybe several states, and we're looking to make it easier for the individual site managers to be able to provide their data back to be reviewed inside of the digital evidence platform. So creating a file request here, we'll be able to decide whether or not we allow anonymous uploads, and we can also set an expiration date for the access link. Once it's created, we can share this with anybody, and when they access the link, they'll have to provide some information and accept the terms and conditions, and then they can start to upload and share files. One of the other things that we do is we generate a QR code for each file request, and this can be used to make it very easy for users to access the file request link. I'll take a minute now. For anybody that's on the webinar that wants to try this out, if you open up your mobile device, your cell phone, and you open your camera application, if you scan this QR code, you will actually get a link directly on your device to be able to share a photo or a video into this particular test case that we're creating during the presentation. So I'll give you a couple of seconds here for anybody that wants to try this, and hopefully we'll see a couple of uploads into the system so I can demo how easy this is to share information. So we'll keep going here. Once the user has accessed the link and submitted their information, they can share a file. So I'm just going to upload a very small video clip. We can add a comment as well, and this will add the file to the case. But what's important to understand here is that this does not give the user accessing the link the ability to view information inside of the case. They're simply able to share information. So if we come back to our case here and I refresh, we'll be able to see that my hit and run video that I've uploaded just now is now in the case. So this is a very useful function and a way that we can have external parties share video to our case in Clearance, or files for that matter. One of the things I want to point out, just in terms of talking about all the different file formats that we support, is we have a full list in our help guide of all the different video codecs and file formats we can support today. In our base package for Clearance, we support 11 video codec types. And we also have an extended video format library that adds support for another 80 or so codecs. So there's a lot of different proprietary formats we'll be able to support and play back directly. We also support several audio and image format files. And again, just to reiterate, even if we can't support a file for playback in the browser today, we can still containerize the file and the information in the Clearance case. So for everything that we've done so far in this case view, as a user with managed rights, we have the ability to access the audit trails. Here we can see from the point of creation everything that's ever happened on this case. So we can scroll down, look at all of the actions. We'll have the name of the user, the associated email address, the time, the IP address, and all of the sub-actions. This is hashed. It can never be edited. So just in terms of being able to have a very strong chain of evidence, always be able to go back and review the information. If there were major changes made and we want to investigate that, we can. And we also have an audit trail for all of the files. So if we want to be able to see the information there as to whether or not they were viewed or downloaded, we're able to do that as well. The last two things that I'll mention in the case view is that we can also subscribe to cases. So if we want to get email notifications and live updates whenever anything is changed, Then we can subscribe to a case and we'll get those email notifications. We can toggle this on and off when we want to. So if we're waiting for maybe a third party to upload a file and we need that to proceed with our investigation, we can do that. One of the other things here I had mentioned previously was that the categories also affect the retention period for the information stored in a case. So just briefly, I'll open up our configuration section. Once we've got our categories defined, in our retention policy section, we can set specific retention periods for each category that we have in the system. So depending on how long you need to hold the files for your investigations, you can control the total storage on the account this way. The retention periods will only come into effect when a case is closed. So during your active investigation, you're not worrying about any video being removed from the system. It just gives you an ability to do controlled purges after an investigation has been completed. We also have a kind webinar attendee here who's shared a file with us. So just to show how easy it is to receive that information from external parties. So we'll jump over to the search tab here in Clearance. And very quickly, we'll talk about how we can search for files. So any Clearance account that's being used correctly is going to have many cases and many files. We'll want to be able to search for them at any point in time. We can filter by case or files. We can also look for categories, date, time. We have a lot of different search criteria here. And then we can always search based off keyword. So like I had mentioned before, I added that custom parking tag to my case. If I search for parking, I'm now going to see all of the cases that we have here or files that have a parking tag. We were also dealing with PTZ video. So if I search for PTZ, we're going to see all of the PTZ clips that are available here. And this is contingent on whether or not we have access. One of the other things that we can do is leverage a map view. So if we have been adding location information to our cases and our files, we'll be able to see them on a Google Maps view. And this can be very helpful if we're looking for complementary information for an investigation. Maybe there was another case that was worked on nearby. If it's relevant, we can request access to that and see that information as well. So I'm going to jump back to our existing demo case here. And I'm going to add one file in particular, and we're going to talk a little bit about video redaction. So here I've added a sample clip, a video that we've got from a cafeteria where we have a cashier attendant speaking to a customer. So let's say for the sake of this example, we're concerned about something. Maybe we've had a negative interaction between our employee and the customer. We want to take a look at this, or maybe we're concerned about theft from the till. We want to be able to investigate. We want to share this information with a couple of parties, but we want to be able to protect all of the individuals' identities until we know what has actually happened in this video, and we've completed a thorough investigation. So to do this, we can leverage our video editor tool in Genetec Clearance. So if I click redact video, this is going to send our clip to the video editor. And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to open up a version of this file that I've analyzed previously. So when we send a clip to the video editor in Clearance, the first thing that we'll do is run a facial detection analytic over the top of the video. This is going to look for front-facing features, eyes, nose, forehead, things of that nature. And when it detects a face, it's going to automatically apply a mask for that individual. You can see up at the top here in the faces section, we have 3 individuals that have been picked up. And if I click on the masks, it'll show us where they're at in the video. I've also got some custom masks. I'm going to delete these here so we can go through this process like new. If I start playing back the video, you can see that the masks that have been applied will follow these users when they move. Now, no analytic is perfect. Like I had mentioned, we're relying on front-facing features to detect faces. And here, our cashier is wearing a hat and looking away. And we also have a woman that's walked into the background The camera quality is a little blurry and she's got a scarf on, so we haven't been able to pick them up. Not a problem though. We're able to manage these situations and complement the automatically created masks with manual masks. I'll click on the mask video section and the new mask button. This will allow me to add a new mask to the project. I can resize this to whatever I need. And then where this redaction tool will differentiate from a lot of the other ones that are out there is that when we click and hold this blue action button, it will allow us to play back the video and apply the mask at a configurable speed. So I'll click and hold this, and we can now apply the mask automatically as we go through the video, manually, I should say. We can do this for as many individuals or areas as necessary. So if I want to back this up and also redact the second individual in the video, I can click the new mask button. I can maybe give this a slightly different shape, and I can follow this individual. I can slow this down since she's moving quickly. And I can even stop and pause whenever I let go of that action button. It will give me the opportunity to readjust where the mask is or resize it. We can do that on the fly. And this will give us the ability to be very precise in our redaction and apply as many of these as we need to. Once your project is complete and you're satisfied with all the masks that have been applied, you can create the video. Here I'm going to view our last created project, and we can see now that the redaction has been applied effectively. We've been able to obscure these individuals' identities, and we can now share this safely. We can either add this to an existing case, or we can create a brand new one to be able to share the video externally. Here we're creating a copy. We're not modifying any of the existing files, so we don't have to worry about changing any of the original information. So we're going to jump out of the video editor, and the last feature that we're going to run through here is our camera registry. So this is a newer module in Genetec Clearance, and this is a very useful feature. It's probably the biggest differentiator that we'll have in the platform compared to any other DEMS solution that's out there. So I'll take it a step back and explain the idea and the concept behind this. At the beginning of the presentation, one of the challenges that we talked about was managing video requests. So here, for the sake of the example, we'll look at a city that has maybe a SafeCam program like Project Greenlight in Detroit or something of that nature, and we have a host of officers that want to be able to request video. Now, typically the way that this is handled today is a small group of security officers will have access to the VMS system or the recording, and anybody that's requesting video will have to go through them. So that could be other officers, it could be private citizens that are looking to submit a FOIA request, it could be attorneys, really any stakeholder. It could even be members of the city internally that are looking to review video just for audit and compliance issues. Now, they have to go through that small team. There's a lot of back and forth between the individuals. They have to search for, look for the video, find it. And then once they've been able to find that video evidence, they still have to be able to share that with the requester. Typically, that involves putting the information on a disk or a thumb drive and either shipping it to them in the mail or having them come pick it up. At that point, we don't have a lot of control over the information that's being shared, and it makes it easier at that point for video to be leaked and to be distributed, on the internet or with people that shouldn't be accessing it. So here with the camera registry, we look to solve this problem by putting the entire process of requesting video and releasing it through the application. And we have a custom approval process that any requester will go through before video is released to them. So in terms of how we're able to populate this list in Clearance, if we're using GSC video cameras, we have a plugin that we can install on the server, and this will allow the organization to add cameras as entities. If we're dealing with a non-Genetec system or other camera sources, we'll simply fill out a spreadsheet with the camera information and some thumbnail screenshots. So to better show how this process works, I'm going to again invite our guest account and walk through this. So I'll assume the identity of maybe a local law enforcement officer here that's working with a city camera program, and I'm going to look to come in and request some video. So I'll send the invitation and we'll switch over to our guest view. I'm now logged in as the officer, and I can come over into the Requests tab here. This is where I can see all of the previous requests that I've submitted. I can review any of them if I need to, and I can also click on Request Video to generate new requests. So with the Request Builder open, the first thing I'll do is click on the Cameras option. This will allow me to open up the camera registry and start looking for the video cameras that are associated with my request. If I click on a unit, an important thing to note here is that we're only able to view metadata. So we're getting a thumbnail field of view for the unit and maybe some location information and a name, but nothing else. To be able to see actual recorded video, the user has to go through the approval process. I can jump back out of here. We're also able to look for video or cameras, I should say, from a map view. So if we've got units location information, we're able to display them again on a Google map. And then we can click on individual units to see their thumbnail and add them to the request. So as an example, if we had an incident here at the Federal Reserve Bank in Chicago, I want to select all the cameras within maybe a 5-block radius. I can box over them and add them to a request. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm just going to select 2 cameras here, one GSC camera and one non-GSC camera. At this point, once I've selected my units, I'm going to define the length of time where I'm looking for video. So the default will be 10 minutes, but I'm just going to drop this down to 2 so that we have a relatively quick export. So once I click next, this is going to bring us to our request details form. Here, we'll have to fill out some information and identify ourselves to prove that this request is legitimate. Now, this request details form that I have here is quite simple. We're just asking for the department, job title, and incident case number, but this is fully customizable. So quickly switching back to my admin view, from the configuration section, the clearance account administrators are able to set up those custom request forms. And we have a tool very similar to SurveyMonkey where we're able to add additional fields and then configure them. So we can drop one in, decide whether it's mandatory or not. And really, we can create any type of field or form here. So depending on the information that an organization or an agency requires to justify the release of video, they can generate that form here and have all requesters submit that information. So I'll switch back over to my guest view. I'll be, local law enforcement. My job title will be investigator. I'll put in a case number that I've been provided, and we can even upload a file. So maybe we're looking at another scenario where we have an attorney that's coming in to request some data. They can provide a subpoena and upload that with their request. There's really a lot of flexibility here when it comes to customizing these forms. So I'm going to submit this request. We're going to get a notification that this has been generated in the system, and this will also send an email notification to the approvers on the clearance account to let them know that a new request has been created and they'll have to come in and review it. So again, I'm going to switch back to my admin view, and this time we're going to go into the request section as an approver. So we can see that we have our new request that was submitted a couple of seconds ago. And when I click on this, we can now see all of the information included with the request. We can see the name of the requester, their email, the time frame that they're looking at for the video, and the cameras that they've selected. For the request details form, we have all of the information that's been provided, and we can evaluate the legitimacy of this request. Once we've taken a look at this, we can decide to either deny or approve. We can add a comment in both cases. So if we're denying the request, maybe too many cameras were selected or a time range that's unacceptable, we can advise the user to resubmit with new parameters. Here, I'm going to approve this request, and you'll see that a couple of things happen here. First, a case is automatically generated that's associated with this request. This is where all of our video is going to be deposited. Now, for the video cameras, depending on whether we're dealing with a GSC camera or not, this will determine what happens next. For the GSC video camera, the export is going to be automatic. So once the approval is given, the plugin will do the rest of the work, and it will grab the recording and upload it to the request and the case. This is going to take a couple of minutes, and you'll see it will just appear on this request. For the non-GSC camera, we have the ability to generate a file request and then add the files that way. So very similar to what you saw before with the file request, we now have a shareable link, and we can provide this to the individual or the group that has access to the recordings. They can go out, they can open up the workstation and download the files, and then immediately upload them into the case for the request instead of having to provide them through another means. So I'm going to upload another file quickly here. We'll let this save. We'll close out of this. We'll come back to the request and refresh. And we'll see now that our manually uploaded video is here. Our GSC video should complete shortly. If I jump into the case view, we can see our GSC video has actually just finished. It's just appeared here, and we have both of the video clips now. As the approver, I have a case that I can now add more information to. So if I need to add additional files or a description or information, I can do that. And we've already generated some permissions for members of the organization that need to have oversight. Now, an important thing to keep in mind here is that we have not yet added the requester. This is still giving the approver the opportunity to review the information that's going to be released to ensure that everything is legitimate and that we're only releasing video that was actually requested. So once we're satisfied with everything, we're comfortable with the contents, we can complete the review. When we click done, this is going to update the case. We can also see the GSC video here as well. And if I refresh the request, see it's now in a completed state. And if we jump back into the case view, our guest, our requester, has now been granted access. They have view and download rights, so they can come in and access the information that they've requested. They don't have to get a DVD in the mail or pick up a USB key. They're able to view it directly from their browser without having to install any software. And we have control over the data. We're able to define their permission levels. And if we need to come in and review whether or not the information's been accessed, any of the actions that have taken place, we still have the audit trails that we can take a look at. Going a bit wider, as the approvers and the managers on the clearance account, we can go to the historical requests view, and we can see all of the requests that have ever been submitted on the clearance account. We can filter this by time and search by name, and this will give us the ability to go back historically and audit any of the video requests that have been processed or dealt with by our approvers in the system. So this is a great way to handle video requests. It takes a lot of the manual work out of the equation and speeds up the delivery process while still maintaining very strong levels of control over your data. So with that said, that concludes the overview of the application. We've covered all of the major features and functionality in the clearance application here. Now, at this point, I'll be able to start answering some questions for anybody that's still on the call. So you can type them into the chat here, and I will try to answer as many of them as possible. At the same time, something else that I would like to mention is that we're currently running a promotion for Genetec Clearance, where the service is available at no cost until December 31st of 2020. So anybody is eligible for this promotion. All you have to do is reach out to us at clearanceteam@genetec.com. You can also make a request for a trial at the sign-up link for the webinar, and we'll be able to provide that clearance account. So if you want to experiment with the application and try using it for all of your digital evidence management needs and sharing, you'll be able to take advantage of that. So with that said, I'll get our questions window open here, and we can start taking a look at some of these. So one of the questions that we had was, can credential activity be uploaded via clearance to a case folder? So one of the things that we can do is generate reports on activity from guests that we've invited to the system. We're also able to pull the the audit trails through APIs if necessary. So if we need to do specific investigations on the activity in the case, we will be able to grab that, and it's always available through the audit trails. We had another question about where the data was stored. So we're using the Microsoft Azure Data Center platform, and we're able to deploy Clearance in multiple data center environments. So depending on your location, we're able to ensure that the data is being held in the same country. We have customers globally at this point, so we're using this application all over the world. And we also have the ability to leverage the government cloud version of Azure. So for those of you that are dealing with very sensitive data and you want to be able to meet CJIS compliance in terms of your data storage, you'll be able to take advantage of that with the government cloud options. All the video itself is held in triplicate in the data centers, so you have a lot of redundancy there and security. There was another question, is there any SDK plugin to push video into evidence.com? Today, we do not have that type of integration. We had another question, when sharing files, can the sender provide more than one video format, I believe? Let me just expand this window. Yeah, so when sharing files, the sender can provide as many different formats or files as they want. There's no limit in terms of what can be sent up or provided. The only thing that we have to be concerned about, obviously, is the total storage on the account. And you can also create copies of cases when you're looking to have information be shared. So if you don't want to have your main case be flooded with uploads, maybe we're looking at a scenario where we have cell phone video coming in from a host of private citizens, we can move that to another case just to be able to better manage the data that's being brought in. So I'll stick around for another couple of minutes here. If there are any more questions, I'll be happy to answer them on the call here for everybody. And I just want to reiterate again that we currently have that promotion running for Genetec Clearance, where any user can request a trial account that will be available until December 31st, 2020, and you'll be able to start leveraging the platform. In terms of trial setup, so we had another question about how long it takes to begin the trial. A Clearance account is very easy to set up, so we'll extend an overview session or some assistance in terms of setting up the system. Typically a 1-hour session should be sufficient. It's a pretty straightforward platform to configure. If you're looking to leverage some of the existing plugins that we have with GSC, that can take a little bit more time, but they're also very straightforward. Typically, if you're already working with a system integrator, they can help you with that plugin installation, or we can get a Genetec SE to assist there as well. We had another question here. If you have a large number of cameras, is there a way to present that in the form of a map instead of just a list of the cameras? So I'll just open back up the Clearance application here to show this again. So when we come to the registry, we are able to access a map view. So as long as we've added the location information, we can display the cameras on a map. So here I've got some example units in the city of Chicago. So if we're looking at a lot of units here and we want to be able to display this graphically, we can. We had another question about costs and subscription levels. So I'll just open the Clearance plans here. So our plans are broken out based on the number of new cases created per month and the total storage on the account. There will also be some differences in the modules. So for example, Plan 100, we've got 100 new cases per month and 1.5 terabytes of total storage on the account. The camera registry is not included in that subscription level, and the extended video format library is an option. When we go up to Plan 200, we add the camera registry module, and at Plan 600 and above, all features are included. Another thing to note is that in a clearance account, all users, there's no limit on the number of users that you can create. So you can have as many members of your organization in the system, and you can create an unlimited number of guest accounts. In terms of pricing, the MSRP for our Plan 100 would start at around $11,000 a year, and I would encourage you to reach out to existing partners or resellers if you want to get quotes if you're working through a systems integrator. You can also reach out to Genetec, and we can help you get some specific pricing for your opportunity. We tend to look at each agency individually and try to come up with a plan that is the best fit for them. So we had another question about subscriptions. If they're all inclusive, I think we just answered that there, but just to reiterate, the camera registry is not included in Plan 100. You will need Plan 200 and above for that feature. Beyond that point, the only other module that we would be looking at is the extended video format library, and that will really come down to whether or not your organization needs the ability to handle a lot of different proprietary video files. So one of the other questions was about local storage and sharing video through the cloud. So Clearance as an application is 100% cloud-based. We don't have a local storage or a hybrid version of the application. Now, that being said, if you are an institution that is still holding a lot of your digital evidence or your data locally, that's just fine. You can also leverage Clearance as a tool to share video through the cloud, and you can set up specific retention periods to be very aggressive, so that after the files have been shared, they'll be purged quickly, or you can do that manually through the application as well. So it can be leveraged as just a sharing mechanism if you're already holding your video locally. But again, the application itself is 100% cloud-based. So we have a couple more minutes here. If there are any other questions, again, I'd be happy to answer them. If you have specific questions about your organization and you'd like to go through them privately, you can reach out to us at clearancesteam@genetec.com. We'll be happy to answer your questions and work with you on your applications and your projects. Again, I want to reiterate that we have the promotion. So for anybody that wants to start using Genetec Clearance today, they'll be able to access a trial account until the 31st of December this year. So I don't see any other questions coming in. For everybody still on the line, thank you very much for attending the webinar today. You can follow up with us for any additional questions. I hope this was an informative session for everybody that joined here. And at Genetec, we'll be happy to help you with any of your digital evidence management needs.